Okay, hello, and so I had said that I'll do the next lecture on the iPad, but I had the recording set up for today, so I just went ahead. I'll just go ahead and complete the entire lecture on the Blackboard. So what I've done is I've written down the rotation rate vector which we were discussing last time, and I have broken it up into the three different components. Right? We have already seen this, how this comes about. And this is nothing but my half across u, okay, this cross product. And if you want to write it in index format, if you want to do that, then you will have to write it like this, where right. So what did we do last time? If you remember the discussion that we were having when we were discussing the angular deformation, and what we had done is we had combined dilation and angular deformation into one, and we had created a tensor called the Sij tensor, right? So we had said Sij is equal to half del ui del xj plus del uj del xi, right? And then we had obviously also gone ahead and said that Sii is basically del ui del xi, right? Now here, if you look at these expressions, this should also give you an idea that maybe we can define another tensor here, and this tensor, we'll call it Rij, and here what I can do, this is, now there will be a minus. Okay. So this two look very similar to each other, but here there is a plus and here there is a minus. Okay, this is a small difference, and what that does is that creates one difference. Sij was symmetric, right? But in case of Rij, Rij is not symmetric. Rij is what? Is minus Rji. So this is an antisymmetric matrix. In any case, all this effort is being done because we are after a certain tensor, which is the strain rate tensor, right? And here what we usually do is we combine Sij, so we define a tensor which is a rate tensor. So if you want, you can put a dot here, which is basically, well, I don't have to put this, I'm writing it in component form right now. So and what do I have? I will have so this tensor is going to be important to us, and we'll come back to this a little bit later. Okay, so these are just the components of this tensor. So when we had started, we had said that there are two important tensors that we have to deal with, which is the stress tensor and the strain rate tensor. Okay, so now I can remove this part, because what we had started with, you have taken this down. Yeah, this is never works very well. we had started this entire game because we are after two different tensors. And the reason we are after these tensors is because just like F equal to ma of Newtonian mechanics, we want to find a relationship between these two. So what we are after is something like this. And we will see that this relationship is important, and without this particular relationship, unless we find this particular relationship, we will not be able to go far enough. Okay, so this is important. But here there is an important difference that is very important to highlight, and sometimes it is not highlighted enough. And then this is regarding how we view mechanics. Now, in mechanics, we have a lot of rules. Okay. And if I had to divide it into two categories, then one would be the set of conservation laws. The set of conservation laws are what? Conservation of mass, okay. Conservation of linear momentum, LM. Okay, so this is conservation. Conservation of angular momentum, and if you so let's just write what we had. So linear momentum conservation, linear momentum equation, angular momentum equation, and then you have the energy, right? So the energy balance. Of course, we now know that these two are related to each other, but right now we'll not worry about that. We'll just look at it as different sets of equations. And these equations, this set called the conservation laws, this represents a very important set of equations, because to the best of our understanding, these equations hold perfectly. So when we say for F equal to ma in Newtonian mechanics, we don't mean that it is an approximate relationship that is true between force and acceleration. We mean that it is true exactly, and it is true for all types of particles. It is true in the quantum realm. Of course, when you go to the quantum or relativistic realm, you have to write it, you don't want to write it as ma, then you write it as ddt of the momentum, and then that relationship is exactly true in the relativistic domain or the quantum domain or the normal day-to-day life domain. And these conservation laws are believed to hold exactly. There is no error. We have not lost out on anything. The conservation of mass is 100% correct. That's our understanding of the rules of mechanics. So these are special in some sense. But then on the other side, there are also other relationships which are called the constitutive relationships. Constitutive relationship, what is an example? One example I'm sure you guys were familiar with is the spring equation, F equal to minus kx. Right? I think I'd be surprised if any of you do not know this. This relationship which holds for linear springs, this is not an inviolable law. This is something we observe to be generally true. If it is not true in certain circumstances, it doesn't take away anything from mechanics. Yes, it's possible that you can have a spring which is not given by this rule. Then what? Well, then nothing really changes. It's okay. It happens, and it can happen. This is observation that there are many situations in which this linear relationship does hold, and we are justified in applying it. Okay. The other type of relationship, for example, is the relationship that we see in solid mechanics. Okay. This is the stress modulus times the strain. Again, a simple linear relationship. This relationship again is not an inviolable law. This is a phenomenological law, a rule. So in a sense, it is incorrect to call these laws. We often call them laws because we think, I mean, it's a terminology that's sort of unfortunate. We use laws for this kind of relationships as well as conservation rules. But the conservation rules are special. So the word laws should be reserved for that. And for this, we should not use the word law as such. These are constitutive relationships. Okay. So in solid mechanics, the stress and the strain is related by this linear relationship, and this is a phenomenological observation, and that this is true for many materials under normal conditions. And what is normal? Well, under the kind of experiments that are reported often in our manuscripts and books, for metals, for small strains, this holds. For brittle materials, also for small strains, it holds. It doesn't hold for rubbery like materials, etc. So there are areas where this will break down. Now for fluid mechanics, we are in search for a similar relationship relating stress and strain rate. Okay. So we'll see what this is and how do we write the strain rate there also. But for the time being, we realize what we are after. So we have just now discussed all the different types of deformation that a fluid material will undergo, and we have seen how to quantify them, right? So what we have not seen at all till now is the stress quantity. Okay, so that brings us to the very important question, which is, what is stress? I mean, I'm sure we all know what stress is. We have been staying at home, cooped up due to this pandemic for so long. It has created its own stress on us. Well, this stress is different because this stress is a tensor quantity, right? And this is the stress of mechanics. And this is related to the force. So when you have force acting on a body, an external force, if the body is deformable, then the body might change its configuration, and there will be internal forces. If you take small material particle somewhere, there will be internal forces, all vectors again, which will be generated. In most books, they discuss force in terms of this kind of a system, where what they will say is that, oh, take a general body and then take an infinitesimal element, and this is the normal vector, this is the force, and then they ask you to take the limit of delta F by delta A, and as A tends to 0, and then they say that this is a stress term. And then they say, okay, how is delta F oriented with respect to delta A? And then that is the particular stress component. Well, I mean, this is one way to understand it, but this is not the best way. Okay, I think this is a way better suited for for very beginning level introductions, or maybe even then not. It is better to understand the fact that when you have a body and you have many forces acting on it, then because of the interaction, the intermolecular interaction of the particles and of the system, the forces are transmitted everywhere in the body. Because of which, if you take an arbitrary cross section somewhere, there will be a force even there. Okay. And so now, because I am studying the geometry, this vector is important to us. So you have a situation where you want to know the force, or you know the force, and you have a geometry, given geometry of the system, and then this mapping, there has to be a way for you, let's say if n were known to you, if an arbitrary cross section was given to you, you should be able to back calculate the force if the rest of the information is all that provided to you. So here, because my situation now involves two vectors, I define a mapping. Okay. This is a linear mapping between the two, and this I call it stress. Okay. So this mapping relates the force at an infinitesimal area whose normal vector is given as n, and this you have these two vectors, and the linear transformation map which relates these two transformation vectors is given by a tensor. And we had discussed this when we were discussing vectors and tensors at the very beginning of the class, right? Now see, this is usually a 1 into 3. This is usually written as, these vectors are usually written as column vectors. Okay, so if I have my force in 3 dimensions, I have these 3 quantities. If I have n, then you have these 3 quantities. The very fact that I am asking you to do a linear mapping between them means that I have to find some linear combination of these 3 to give me the first force. So if I take a linear combination, I'll have to have 3 different unknowns here, C1, C2, C3 or something like that. For my second one, again I will need some other unknowns to find this, or certain coefficients that are going to give me F2 for a linear relationship. Similarly for F3, right? So for each of these relationships, we'll have to define 3 unknown quantities or 3 numbers. So if you have to do 3 of them and thrice, how many numbers do you have? You'll end up getting 9. So my stress vector, my stress tensor becomes a 3 cross 3 tensor, or a matrix. So my stress tensor is equivalent to a 3 cross 3 matrix. Because these are all finite dimensional quantities, you end up with this. Now the question is, what do these, so I can fill this up with some letters and symbols and all that, but the question is, what will it mean? Well, the easiest way to understand it is in terms of an infinitesimal cube. So let us draw an infinitesimal cube. So this is 1, these are the directions. And the fact that you have these 3 numbers here, they will be reflected in the fact that you have 3 numbers associated with this face. And on this face, there is some net vector that is going to act. Okay, so there is some net vector, force vector that has to act on this face. So let us call that T1. Okay, T1 is a traction vector. Similarly, on my face 2, let's call that, there will be some vector here. This will be T2 and this will be T3. So I want to write my equations such that my T1 vector is some sigma 11 E1 hat plus sigma 12 E2 hat plus sigma 13 E3 hat. Oh, and if I were to go ahead and do the same thing all over again, you have 2 1. I'm sorry, I made a lot of mistakes while writing it. I corrected all of them, but just make sure that it looks okay. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that on my face 1 here, which is basically the face facing the direction of 1, there is some force that is acting on it. And a force that is acting on a surface is also called traction. So that is why I have written as a T. And this is a vector, so I have written as T bar. Okay, and the subscript refers to the face. So T1 vector is acting on this particular face. And what I want to do is I want to express this vector as a sum of these 3 quantities. So there is some sigma 11 which is acting in the E1 direction, there is some sigma 12 that is acting in the E2 direction, and some sigma 13 that is acting in the E3 direction. If you wanted to draw this and pictorially depict this, then what you would do, unfortunately I had drawn this earlier itself, there was no need, I wanted to draw this later. So if you want to pictorially depict this equation, then what you will do is on this face you can draw 3 arrows and say that, okay, this is sigma 11 which is related to the E1 direction. This is sigma 12 which is related to the E2 direction, and this is sigma 13 which is related to the E3 direction. Okay, and that completes my stress diagram on face 1. Similarly, on my face, on the surface that is facing the 2 direction, there is some net force that is acting on it, and that force, it's a force on a surface, and that is called as a traction force. So I have here written as a T2 with a vector sign bar, and I want to write my equation such that this T2 bar is equal to sigma 21 E1 hat sigma 22. By the way, these numbers are not determined. Okay, these are some numbers you will need, but right now we are trying to devise the rule by which you will be designating these. So this is sigma 21, this is sigma 22, this is sigma 23. So now if I want to pictorially depict this situation, I have to come to phase 2 and I will draw again 3 arrows where my sigma 22 is a portion that is acting in the E2 direction. My sigma 21 is something that is acting in the E1 direction, and sigma 23 is something that is acting in the E3 direction. Why I am telling you all this is because, see, this is something that I want to do. This is how I want to write it. And based on this, I am making all these diagrams. So this diagram has arrows, and these arrows are often a bit confusing because arrows are traditionally reserved for vectors. So why are we suddenly writing these arrows when it comes to tensors? Because the arrows are not what it means in the case of vectors. The arrows are simply a pictorial representation of this set of equations. Okay. What happens on the other faces? I will come to that. But on the positive faces, this is what happens. Similarly, if you want to complete it, you have T3, and here again I can, I will have this. So this is my sigma 33, and this is my sigma 31, and this is my, okay. So this entire thing is a pictorial representation of this. And now what I will do is I will say that this set of numbers, let us call this as stress, because so this is going to be these 9 quantities here, they are going to represent my stress. This is important because there is a matter of convention here. Okay, there are two things that are important. One is I have chosen to write my vectors f as a column vector here, and you could have instead chosen this as a row vector. Now we know that for matrix multiplication, whether it's a column vector or a row vector, that makes a difference in matrix multiplication. So sometimes some books, some fluid mechanics books, some solid mechanics books, they take the other approach where they write this as row vectors, and then it changes the way some of the the equations appear. Okay, so some quantities might be swapped, etc. So for us, we will follow this particular convention, and then when we say stress, we will mean that if I had to find the force with respect to these vectors, then this is how I am going to write it, and I am going to call this my stress vector, my stress tensor. In some books, you will see that this is swapped. So instead of sigma 1, sigma 1, 2, they write it as sigma 2, 1. And that's particularly totally fair. And then here they will write it as sigma 3, 1. So this will be swapped. So then this will look as the transpose of its own. So so this diagram, by the way, this is not this is not the only possible way in which you can draw it. Depending on how you want to write this particular equation, this diagram it can change. Okay, so we have to be so this subscripts, they often confuse people as what is sigma 1, 3, what is sigma 2, because suddenly you have all these going from vectors, you now have these tensorial quantities, and suddenly have 9 quantities from vectors. You are accustomed to 3, and suddenly you have 9, and keeping a tab on what it means can be very confusing. So you only have to remember the particular equation format in which they are, and this is just the pictorial representation of this. Now when there are certain other rules, what I have done is I have written them down, and I will just dictate them to you, because otherwise it's just too much writing on my part. So can you please write down these 4? This is the stress sign convention. So the stressed sign convention are as follows. So please write this down. Number 1, a positive face is a face that has a normal vector pointing in the positive direction. Okay, so I'll dictate 4 sign conventions. So this is the first one, and that is this. In the stress sign convention, the first rule is, or the first convention for us is, a positive face is a face that has a normal vector pointing in the positive direction. So here the normal vectors for this face is pointing in the positive direction, but for the other face, which I have not shown here, that is pointing in the negative direction. Okay. So for the same cube, you have 2 faces. One is a positive face and the other is a negative face. Positive stresses on positive faces point in the positive direction. Positive stresses on positive faces point in the positive direction. This is number 2. Number 3, positive stresses on negative faces point in the negative direction. This is important. Okay. So positive stresses on negative faces point in the negative direction. So this was third. So the fourth one is, the first subscript on the stress refers to the face on which it acts. So the way we have written it, the first subscript on the face here refers to the face on which it acts. The second subscript refers to the direction in which the stress acts. Okay. So we've had 4. I've discussed all 4. The first one was, a positive face is a face that has a normal vector pointing in the positive direction. The second was, positive stresses on positive faces point in the positive direction. The third was, positive stresses on negative faces point in the negative direction. And the fourth one was that the first subscript on the stress refers to the face on which it is acting, and the second one refers to the direction on which it is acting. Okay. So as I've told you that this is a convention. Okay. We are applying this particular convention because this is one of the 2 popular conventions, and we will see what the effect of this is. Okay, good. So what we will see is this. Okay, there are a couple of things that I am not going to derive, and these are, what I will do is, see, we are there's a lot of different ground I have to cover, so I am not going to go into details of all proofs, but one important proof I want you to please try this out yourself, and I will give you the proof in the next class. I'll just write it down and I'll share that PDF with you, but I want you to try this out, and you have to show that for simple fluids stress tensor is symmetric. That is sigma ij equal to sigma ji. Okay. This is number 1. And the way to do that is to take a cube, okay, and try to sum the moments. And for a simple fluid, you will not have any intrinsic angular momentum to balance. So for a given fluid, you have to show that when you apply the angular momentum conservation principle to infinitesimal cube, can you get this? Okay, so give it a shot. The other, how am I doing in time? Okay, so the other is, given an arbitrary normal n hat, let's say. So if I want to find these traction forces for this arbitrary vector, normal vector, then I have to do this. Okay. So give it a shot if you can, and I will discuss this a little bit more in the next class. Okay, so we'll stop here today.